Thad McCotter, the former congressman who I quoted earlier, he wrote an article that we have featured on my website, davejanda.com. It's free, just go there. It's entitled, Who Broke General Flynn Upon a Wheel? You see, they're panicked about General Flynn. Because General Flynn is not just fighting for his freedom. He's fighting for your freedom. Every American's freedom. And so is his family, and so is Sidney Powell, his fantastic attorney. In fact, I don't know of another attorney in this country that could have done what Sidney Powell has done. I'm very sincere in that. She, along with General Flynn, along with his family, are defeating the deep state. Thad wrote an article, Who Broke General Flynn Upon a Wheel, as I mentioned. It is on the website. I will put a link in the description section for you to get there. It's short. It's troubling. But it's to the point. Well, what's this business about upon a wheel? It actually goes back to 1967 when William Rees-Mogg wrote an article in the London Times. He was the publisher of the London Times and the editor. Who breaks a butterfly upon a wheel? It was about when Mick Jagger had been over-prosecuted on essentially a misdemeanor. But Rees-Mogg based his article on something that occurred a couple hundred years ago. And it was about what the Just Us system used to do in the 1700s. They had something called a Catherine wheel, which was used to torture victims. Victims were tied to that wheel and their long bones were broken by an iron bar. When Rees-Mogg wrote the article about a butterfly on the wheel, it's really about a quite likely unhinged individual using a superabundant effort in the accomplishment of a small matter. You see, the totalitarian state, the deep state, the New World Order crowd, the globalist syndicate, are the ones who put General Flynn on the wheel. To not just prosecute him, but to persecute him. To make him an example for every American. To let every American know what's happening to him can and possibly will happen to you. They picked the wrong guy to put on the wheel. They picked a patriot. They picked a patriot who had an incredibly powerful family. By powerful, I mean powerful in faith, powerful in cohesiveness, powerful in dedication, powerful and willing to sacrifice and to persevere. They didn't anticipate that. They also didn't anticipate that General Flynn would be firing his bought and paid for totalitarian deep state initial attorneys who essentially threw him under the bus. They didn't anticipate that he would then bring forward Sidney Powell, equally as tough as the Flynn family. Locked into perseverance, dedication, sacrifice, and doing the right thing, and having the courage to take on the deep state. Since Sidney Powell came on, she championed General Flynn as his family had done and as he had done throughout the entire process. She brought forward the facts, the data. The facts and the data showed one thing. He was an innocent man. He was being persecuted for a crime he did not commit. He was singled out because they feared him, just as they fear you. The deep state felt by persecuting General Flynn, they were persecuting you, and it would shut you up forever. And that, just as their pandemic, has backfired. It's a big week this past week. You'd never know it through the bought-off lamestream fake media. Of course not. They're not going to touch this. They don't want you to know about it. April 24th, Department of Justice released what Sidney Powell has asked for and claimed has existed for almost a year. That the Justice Department and the FBI were holding documents that showed the innocence of her client, General Flynn. And finally, on April 24th, 2020, the Justice Department coughed up what's called Brady material, or information that exonerates General Flynn. Finally coughed it up to General Flynn, Sidney Powell, General Flynn's family, and Team Flynn. April 24th. How'd that happen? Well, Attorney General Barr appointed an individual, Jeff Jensen, from the Eastern District of Missouri to review what the prosecutors had been doing in January. He reviewed it, went back to Barr, said, we have stuff here that was never handed over to General Flynn that exonerates him. AG Barr then released it. But that wasn't all. On April 28th, General Flynn's former counsel, who was really working for the deep state, firm by the name of Covington out of D.C., if that sounds familiar, one of the partners in Covington was Eric Holder, is Eric Holder, former Attorney General for Barack Obama. They all of a sudden, they had supposedly turned over all the information they had on their former client for his review, but they all of a sudden found 6,800 pages of documents that they had, quote, misplaced, end quote. Yeah, right. That was on April 28th, 2020. On April 29th, 2020, the FBI released 11 more pages of exculpatory information. In other words, documents that show General Flynn's innocence. And on April 29th, Judge Emmett Sullivan unsealed the documents from April 24th, 2020. I want to read to you a document that Sidney Powell filed with the court on April 24th, 2020, right after the documents were released to Team Flynn, but before the public saw them. I'm going to read this to you because the bought-off lamestream fake media, including Fox, will never read this, never inform you about this document. It's the supplement to Mr. Flynn's motion to dismiss for egregious government misconduct. Here's what Sidney said. On January 29th, 2020, General Flynn submitted his motion to dismiss for egregious government misconduct and in the interest of justice. I have presented that in previous YouTube presentations on this platform. Go back in the archives and watch those presentations. Mr. Flynn now files this brief supplement to his motion to dismiss for government misconduct. This afternoon, April 24th, 2020, the government produced to Mr. Flynn stunning Brady evidence, that's exculpatory information that shows his innocence, that proves Mr. Flynn's allegations of having been deliberately set up and framed by corrupt agents at the top of the FBI. It also defeats any argument that the interview of Mr. Flynn on January 24th, 2017 was material to any investigation. The government has deliberately suppressed this evidence from the inception of this prosecution, knowing there was no crime by General Flynn. In addition, General Flynn's counsel has found further evidence of misconduct by Mr. Van Grack specifically. He's one of the prosecutors, formerly of Robert Mueller's special counsel's office. Not only did Van Grack make baseless threats to indict General Flynn's son, Michael G. Flynn, he made a side deal not to prosecute General Flynn's son, Michael G. Flynn, as a material term of the plea agreement, but Van Grack required that it be kept secret between himself and General Flynn's former attorneys, Covington, expressly to avoid the requirement of previous federal statutes. Since August 2016, at the latest, partisan FBI and Department of Justice leaders conspired to destroy General Flynn. These documents show in their own handwriting and emails that they intended either to create an offense they could prosecute or at least get him fired. Then came the incredible malfeasance of Van Grack and the special counsel's office prosecution, despite their knowledge there was no crime by General Flynn. All this evidence, and the government has advised there is more to come, proves that the crimes were committed by the FBI officials and then the prosecutors, not General Flynn. The government's misconduct in this case is beyond shocking and reprehensible. It mandates dismissal. I will go a step further. This is not Sidney Powell talking. This is Dave Janda speaking. I believe it goes beyond dismissal. I believe everyone on Robert Mueller's team. Robert Mueller had 19 attorneys and 40 FBI agents. They were all cognizant of this. They all should be culpable. They all should be terminated from their respective jobs at the Department of Justice and the FBI. 1. 2. The attorneys involved should be stripped of their law licenses. 3. Every member of Robert Mueller's team, including Robert Mueller, the 19 attorneys, and the 40 FBI agents that were cognizant of this information should be prosecuted. Not just fired from the Department of Justice, not just law license and strips for the attorneys. They all should be held on criminal charges. I also believe civil charges should be filed by General Flynn against every single one of these individuals. Then this came out from the Daily Caller. Exclusive. Source says FBI Director Christopher Wray pushed to withhold exculpatory evidence in Mike Flynn case. Federal Bureau of Investigations Director Christopher Wray fought to prevent exculpatory evidence from surfacing in the case of President Donald Trump's former National Security Advisor, General Michael Flynn. A source with direct knowledge of the situation tells the Daily Caller. How did they respond? FBI and Department of Justice came out and said, well, no, we don't think that's accurate. We stand behind Director Wray. Really? Well, what was that, Jerry Maguire? Show us the money. You know what? Show us the evidence that he didn't withhold. Because according to sources, Wray was integrally involved in withholding this information. On April 29th, as I mentioned, Judge Emmett Sullivan released the documents that were released to Team Flynn on April 24th. And with that came some interesting further information. Such as what, Dave? Well, how about this? The name given to the FBI gave to General Flynn was Razor. And the operation to take him down was not Crossfire Hurricane, as was the other operation to take down Donald Trump, but this was called Crossfire Razor. quote, "Don't close razor," end quote. Flynn FBI setup continues to unravel as text reveals Strzok went off the rails. U.S. District Court judge unsealed 4 pages of FBI emails on April 29th and handwritten notes which provided the strongest evidence of a perjury trap of General Flynn. According to a new filing in Flynn's case, the FBI investigation into Trump's former National Security Advisor, General Flynn, was called Crossfire Razor. Now listen, remember, Donald Trump was inaugurated president January 20th, 2017. Strzok and Pienko were sent in an ambush interview by McCabe and by Comey to the White House to ambush General Flynn on January 24th, 2017, 4 days after Donald Trump was inaugurated. Remember that date, January 24th, 2017. But in these documents that were released, here's the key. On January 4th, 20 days before they went to interview General Flynn, on January 4th, 2017, the FBI's Washington field office recommended closing the case against General Flynn after finding, quote, no derogatory information, end quote, against General Flynn. Let me read to you from the FBI memorandum. Quote, the goal of the investigation was to determine whether General Flynn, associated with the Trump campaign, was directed and controlled by and or coordinated activities with the Russian Federation in a manner which is a threat to the national security and or possibly a violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Following the initiation of the captioned case, the Crossfire Hurricane team conducted a check of logical databases for any derogatory information on General Flynn. Quote, no derogatory information was identified in FBI holdings, end quote. Yet, on that same day, there was a text message sent by former FBI scum Peter Strzok. The same day, as they closed the case, he sent, no, quote, don't close razor. Don't close razor. Why? Quote, the 7th floor is involved, end quote. 7th floor is the FBI leadership floor. That would be Comey. That would be McCabe. That would be James Baker, the general counsel. Yeah, they're involved. Don't close it. It gets worse. As more of these documents were uncovered, some more issues came out. There was some handwritten notes about, in particular from Bill Pristap, who's the former director for counterintelligence at the FBI. Some notes before they interviewed General Flynn. Remember, they already found on January 4th that there's no case there, but yet they decided to ambush him. You see, General Flynn was in their insurance policy. If they could bring down Flynn, they could, bring down Trump. In the handwritten notes, it was, quote, what is our goal? To get to the truth? To get an admission? Or to get General Flynn to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired? Wow. It also talks about not providing General Flynn a Miranda-like warning before his interview. Wow. It's called abuse of power. And it's called obstruction of justice. But it gets worse. More documents that surfaced reveal exactly what Sidney Powell and what I have stated in the past and have been roundly criticized that this was pure conjecture. No, it was actually fact. Those documents show Peter Strzok admitting that he edited the 302 form. You see, a 302 form is when the FBI interviews someone, interrogates, in General Flynn's case, someone. The agents write up their documentation of the encounter. Pienka and Strzok interviewed Flynn. Pienka wrote it up. And then Flynn, of General Flynn, and then Strzok edited it. In fact, changed it with the help of Lisa Page, his little squeeze. I believe that's a criminal matter. A crime was committed. Because Strzok admitted in these documents that he changed the entire context of the original 302, which is still missing. And if you believe it's missing, please go to another channel. It exists. But the FBI claims it's still missing. And the text messages that were also released show Lisa Page admitting that she was involved in the editing process. Lisa Page wasn't even in the room. Lisa Page is going to go to prison. And she was doing it on behalf of her boss, Andrew McCabe, who had to sign off on the final 302. Why would they do such a thing? What would possess them? Well, one is they didn't think they were going to get caught. Two, they thought that wheel was going to break General Flynn, his family, and Sidney Powell. And instead, they thought they were putting General Flynn on that wheel. And they were putting you on that wheel. That's what they thought. But here's what's happening. That was all an illusion. They were putting themselves on that wheel of truth. You see, they had a wheel of deception. The public has a wheel of truth. And that is what is in the process of happening as we speak. They feared General Flynn. They feared General Flynn's family. They feared Sidney Powell. And they fear the public. You. The illusion they create through their bought-off lamestream fake media is they fear no one. And you are to fear them. That is an illusion. The reality is they fear you. And you, our country, and freedom, along with General Flynn, his family, and Sidney Powell, are winning. I thank you for joining me today. I hopefully will be able to do a video in the weeks to come. My retina is continuing to heal. I cannot look at bright lights, which is what we have to do to produce a video. That would adversely affect the retina and its repair. And after all these weeks of recovery, if you want to call it that, I just can't sacrifice the recovery process for having bright lights in my newly repaired retina. I hope you'll join us at davejanda.com, at least for the radio show. It's free every Sunday, 2 to 5 Eastern, as I mentioned. Stream it live at davejanda.com. I hope you'll join us for these YouTubes, and I hope you'll become part of our Freedom family. Without our subscribers, these YouTubes, the website, and the radio show all go away. I truly believe we provide a valuable service. The subscription price is 30 cents a day. 30 cents a day. I believe it's the biggest bang for the buck in all the internet. I hope you become part of our Freedom family. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big.